no sound on that. Hope he answers. He might be out to lunch with his daughter. Good afternoon, Ray. I'm doing all right. How are you? All right. Yeah, you want to kill that background noise? All right. Well, happy 88th birthday belated. Yesterday was your birthday. How'd it go?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. I heard from all my kids.
Yeah, good deal, good deal. You know, we...
Yeah, David was down at Little Beach.
Well, we...
He was just coming back. I don't know what he was doing down there with all the construction going on, but he had his contractor before, and this was a replacement for that other hurricane that he couldn't make it down there for.
Oh, I see.
So he had to cash in. He had 2 weeks to pay for it. So this was the final thing, and he went down like 2 days before that hurricane hit.
Yeah.
But they only got like 30 mile an hour things, you know. So,
Right.
30 mile an hour winds. So, okay, what's going on?
Well, I'd hope to have a little more time to work with, but I think I can squeeze out an hour, maybe as many as 2. And I got into your book yesterday.
Okay.
And I started going through footnotes. And,
Did you find anything?
well, I looked at those 2 map, the second map that you spoke of, right? And I double checked the note that you left me a note in there, by the way, other than the one you wrote on the book itself. You left another note. So what I decided to do was go through your footnotes a little one at a time and talk about the progression of your book. And I thought we'd do a series of interviews over that and try to cover the whole thing. Right?
Okay.
Now we've got...
Second map, is that the one where we're missing?
Yeah, is it the one that you hand drew? You drew yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one that we're not on there. You know, we're not on that map.
Well, I looked at map 16, 17, 18, and 19,
Yeah.
and you're not on those either. So it just says, well, I can bring them up for what it's worth, but I'll get into it. Anyway, what I did was I went through your notes and I kind of compiled a list of questions, right?
Yeah.
And I just wanted you to fill them, and we'll go through a few of these at a time in a series, and then we'll just get a whole series, we'll get the whole thing covered. On page 12, in reference to bacon and eggs,
Yeah.
you make the comment and say, while the chicken gave some, the pig gave all.
Yeah.
And it's in reference to the amount of Army usage and Marine Corps usage at the Chosen, as well as Korea in general. So I thought maybe we'd kind of start with that little outline. The whole operation falls under control of General MacArthur, the only 4-star general I think at the time in the area, who was in Japan and had Asian background. That's all accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, see, his title was, he was supposed to be on all these communiques. It was supposed to be SUMAC, but it was UN. United Nations was in front of that on his official communications.
okay.
It's supposed to be US, United Nations, Commander-in-Chief for all these commands.
So officially though, he doesn't become 5-star until Truman puts him over the UN command. Is that correct?
He had those, he had the 5-star back in World War II.
Okay. So he was 5-star in Japan when Korea broke.
Yeah, him and Nimitz got the
Well, Nimitz, they weren't going to put Nimitz in. They're not going to put a Navy guy over a land battle. That's kind of a given,
Yeah.
as a general rule of thumb. So.
Yeah, see, in World War II, what they did, they split it kind of down the middle for MacArthur's command and Nimitz.
Okay.
The only thing is, when Guadalcanal came up, the Marines didn't want to serve under MacArthur, so they moved the line over so they'd be under Nimitz command.
Okay.
And that was in Guadalcanal. You know, that was early.
All right.
That's early in the war, but that's the Second World War, you know.
Right. So, for MacArthur to become in charge of the UN operations there in Korea, is that decision, does that fall on Truman, or does that fall on the UN itself?
On what?
For MacArthur to be in charge of the UN forces, does that fall under the decision made by Truman, or is that decision made by the United Nations?
Oh, no, that was strictly, he was in charge of Japan, you know. He was in charge, he still had the Philippines and all that. All that command was still his. The Philippines, that was still his under the command when the war was over. But Truman planted him there. Truman planted him there in Tokyo.
Okay.
Command in the Far East, he still had all that stuff. They drew back the other commanders that were just notarized, just nominally mentioned in World War II.
Okay.
Because MacArthur, and that's when MacArthur had clashes with the Russians, because the Russians wanted Hokkaido.
Okay.
And so they were telling him that because it's right across the Siberia, so they were more or less saying, well, they're going to take it. He said, well, you put anybody in there. He said, I'm arresting all of your Russian people down here in Tokyo.
Wow.
They put them under arrest, so they backed off.
Well, that's pretty strong. That's pretty strong. All right, let's talk about his command structure. MacArthur's command structure when he gets put together there for the UN operations in Korea. General Ned Almond is a 2-star, right? But because MacArthur is the lead commander over it all, this, for the most part, will be an Army operation, right?
Yeah, I'm getting part of what you're saying, Bob. I think you sound like you're in an echo chamber.
It's hard to improve on this. I'll do what I can. Is that better?
Yeah, that's way better, yeah.
Okay, so maybe let me call you right back and see if we get a better connection.
Okay.
Yeah, because I hear the reverb myself. Hang on just a second. I'll call you right back.
Okay.
But,
Okay, I'm here.
all right, does that sound better? No echo?
Yeah, see, it takes time for the strong speaker to kick in.
Okay, because I can hear the delay.
Oh, okay.
All right, so
Yeah, it takes time, man. A little time. It was mumbled, so once the speaker kicked in, I'm all right.
okay, 2 of the latest books that came out, Chosen Reservoir by a guy named Cleaver, and the second one is On Desperate Ground with Hampton Sides. So Hampton Sides, I can confirm specifically that he calls the undercommand, the people surrounding MacArthur, as being a bunch of sycophants. You know, a bunch of yes men.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to address.
Undoubtedly, yeah, there's probably no doubt about that.
Well, I wanted to address that though. To assume that makes one believe that it was 100% yes men, and I don't believe that to be true. In fact, I'm under the impression that there were a couple of occasions where General Ned Almond said, "No, wait a minute, MacArthur, you're kind of jumping out of line here and actually had arguments with it.
Yeah, that's why I told him that in that addendum at the tail end, that's why I reprinted what was in that policy and direction about MacArthur, Almond taking issue with MacArthur's plan. And that's what when I started with from Chosen, when I get into escaping the trap.
Okay.
That's when you had it you had it up in there. The first part of the book is where he went into how Almond, how he said in Chosen, how Almond was so faithful to MacArthur. When he started in that escaping the trap, that's when Almond started saying, hey, Almond is saying, wait a minute. This isn't right.
Okay.
And he said, and that's what I said, it looked like he's trying to correct some mistakes he made. And as far as I was concerned, in that escaping the trap, he was stepping into quicksand.
Yeah.
He was trying to correct them things. See, because, like I said, with that Operation Order 25, when I first read that in Chosen, he said that was draft number 2.
Yeah.
And that's where I got stuck. I even said I got stuck on that page. Because I'd already had the stuff from Zabel, where that was draft number 3, and that was order number 07.
James Zabel at the MacArthur Library.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've spoken with him on a couple of occasions. That's one sharp cookie. But I don't want to get too far ahead of the timeline here in our discussion. So I want to back it back to the first 12 pages, if you will, of your book. All right.
Yeah.
So let's break this down. Almond went to the Joint Chiefs and actually got the go-ahead to get the Marine Corps involved in the first place. Were you aware of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when it says, I think Charles covers in on that. It says even the Marines didn't know it was Almond that got them involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were saying it was Shepard. See, Shepard come out with, I think Stanton covered that pretty well. Shepard was wanting to be to the action, they wanted the Marines in there, and Truman said no.
You're talking about Lem Shepard. Yeah, you're talking about Lem Shepard. Yeah, I saw that in the Childs interview. I went and looked over that in the Childs interview. Childs makes a couple interesting points, and I'm not disagreeing with the fact that a lot of men under Truman's command, were looking to move up or wanted to be the right hand man of MacArthur. That makes perfect sense. But again, we're looking at a scenario where you got Nimitz on one side and you got MacArthur on the other. And something breaks out, who are you going to go to? You're going to go to your top guy, which is going to be MacArthur every time for a land battle.
Yeah, well see, then Shepard, since he was fleet commander of the Pacific, he was almost assured a spot of Almond's position, but he didn't get it.
Right. Okay. So
that's what the chief of staff told MacArthur. He said, well, you got to get a guy for that landing. And he was thinking, well, it'll be Shepard. And MacArthur said, forget it, I already got the man. And he said, well, who? He said, when he said Almond, he said, the Joint Chief of Staff didn't come out of his chair.
Okay. So if Almond, right, you're right about that.
That's the man that MacArthur picked, and that's the way it was going to stay.
Yeah, that was a good spot. So when Almond comes into 10th Corps Command, he's kind of got a dual hat on. He's the senior guy under MacArthur, but he's also leader of 10th Corps. So this Pinky guy, do you remember his name? The guy that actually took over the G3 operations under MacArthur? You remember his name? They called him Pinky.
Oh, Pinky, right. I forget the first name was James or something, but they called him Pinky, but it was Wright. W-R-I-G-H.
WRIGHC. Okay. All right. Let's get down to some fundamentals. How many Marine Corps personnel were brought into the Korean engagement from the front end, and how many did they have to pull from to do it?
Well, they brought that first Marine brigade over, and they wanted to put them in Japan, and they thought they were going to just leave them there for whatever they were going to do, and apparently MacArthur said, leave them over in Korea.
Okay.
They're not going to sit there when I need them.
Right. In the meantime, the Navy's running a blockade down at Formosa, Taiwan, to prevent any Chinese expansionism towards the island, because Chiang Kai-shek was down there with his men who had been basically pushed out of China.
Because they didn't know if when they did. Well, of course, that was wrong. Yeah, that was before the Chinese even started showing up.
Okay.
There was always that conflict that China said that they own Formosa.
Right.
They still say it.
Yeah.
They changed the name now, but you know.
Yeah, they
Formosa.
here it is 70 years later and they still want it.
Yeah, they're still claiming it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So in
They'll keep doing it.
so in the end run though, once you get to let's use December 31st of 1950, how many Marines are involved in Korea as opposed to the number of Marines that are actually in uniform? What kind of numbers are we talking about?
I think they had about, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was about total was something about 75,000 when they started.
75,000, okay.
Yeah, I mean, and they had to, see, that's what Shepard had to get them together from all corners, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what Smith was talking about when he got them. They weren't ever, you know, like an organization, you know, that you know, like monk buddies.
Okay. What was
Some of them come from the Atlantic, you know, different places, or some of them from those various islands, like Guam, I guess, Guam in the Philippines,
Yeah.
Okinawa.
Okay, what was OP?
So it wasn't like they say that, you know, that all the Marines were together. That's just like that guy, the commandant in the Second World War. He took over, which, who was that? Oh, that was, who's the guy I'm missing here? Was this, the one, because he was saying that, I got it here somewhere. I think it's in my memory, but I'm thinking, who is that guy? Oh, Martin Russ.
Martin Russ.
Yeah, he's the guy who said, the Marines don't wear fancy insignias, you know, but they did during World War II.
Okay.
You remember the one for Iwo Jima, that was like the 5th or something?
Right.
And the commandant at that time, he said, no, I don't want you wearing insignia patches.
Okay, so that changed after.
It's kind of crazy, because that's how you relate to somebody else. You're walking in some place, you see, like me, if I saw a guy with the 7th Division, you automatically got a relationship with him.
Right. Okay.
So they went in, like the big one they had, you know, for first Marines. They were at Guadalcanal, but they were not at Iwo Jima.
Okay.
So that's why that guy, I told you, that one guy was attacking Newsweek. You know, I forget his name right off the bat, but he was attacking Newsweek, and he said, you know, like, Korea wasn't important enough to talk about. And that's when he put, like, he was talking about 200,000 Chinese there, because 10 to 1 they were there, you know, and that's another story.
Okay. So, of the 75,000 Marines that are available, which included reservists, approximately 25,000 are brought into swing in Korea. If I remember right, Ricks reports 18,000 from Kyoto Ri due north to Yudam-ni, but there were like 5,000 in reserve at Hungnam. Is that accurate?
Yeah, Hungnam, they said 10,000 was in reserve.
10,000. So now we're talking.
10,000.
Now we're talking.
And see, in spite of what they lost to Chosen, which is that they, you know, it said that when they 22,000 left on now.
22,000.
So they had a little over 25,000 all told up there.
That would put the number around 28. Somewhere around in there, somewhere between 25 and 28. That would be my guesstimation.
Well, they probably have a lot of them, because then you had those that were on ship assigned to the Navy, you know, they were there.
Yeah, but I think those numbers might be a little bit exploded. Maybe 2,000 or 3,000 more than what actual numbers are, but I can't confirm that at the moment. But let me back up a little bit. Okay. So General O.P. Smith, U.S. Marines, states in his oral history that he was kind of pleased with MacArthur because MacArthur gave the Marines something to do, gave them a place, confided in him, believed in him, so on and so forth, was supporting the survival of the Marine Corps. So let's go back into O.P. Smith's history, post-World War II and pre-Korea. Wasn't O.P. Smith kind of like touring D.C. and all points available in order to keep the Marine Corps established in a time when after World War II they were trying to possibly get rid of the Marine Corps? Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, even that thing I've got, like, I think the last thing in the book, when I got that book under that, it says like the guy was saying, it says there was always that battle that the Marines felt that the Army was saying they were trying to get a second army.
Yeah.
The Marines were always trying to get more people to structure,
Well, after the chosen campaign, Truman does make a firm commitment to start expanding the military once again. After discovery of communist expansion, so on and so forth, but more so after the failure there at Tianjin. And anyway, we'll get back to that too. Let's get back to O.P. Smith. When they came to come up with the landing program, when MacArthur convinced the Joint Chiefs that an Incheon landing was the best way to go, and basically overruled a lot of them. Of course, he had 5 stars; he could do that in a lot of places. How did O.P. Smith play into that equation in terms of determining who was going to land, when, and where? Did he actually draw up the landing plans? Because I don't believe that's the case.
Well, he was in charge of it. He was in charge of it. I mean, he had to know the plan, But I imagine that was run up by the Navy more than anything else.
So Task Force 77 under Nimitz and all them guys, they would be the ones actually coordinating the plans to land them.
Yeah.
Now I know O.P.
I think Nimitz was already, I think he retired right after the war, though. By now, I think he was gone. But I know it would be the Navy, because the Navy had to get the Higgin boats, everything to land them.
Okay.
Like the first, they kept referring first and second wave and things.
Right.
The first group's going to hit, and then he started talking about the beaches, and then that's when he got in with Alman, He said, I want that Marine Brigade that's down in Busan, down to Walker.
Okay.
And then so Alman informed Walker, and Walker said, I can't release them. He says, I'll fall apart down there.
Okay.
Short on them now. He's at a stand or die line. Should he drew.
Okay. So let's even back up another step and describe what's about to happen in Korea. The definition, aside from being the fact that it was called the Forgotten War, and of course there's plenty of reasons for that. It was also called a war on a budget. And so the argument was, after World War II, there was a lot of downsizing because we were so massive in volume in military personnel. That makes perfect sense. But they didn't expect a fire back from communist China and Russia shortly thereafter. So we were in downsizing mode under Truman prior to the Korean War. Correct?
Yeah, well, see, it said what really saved us, or what trucks we had, is since MacArthur put in like what they call a rollover plan.
Okay.
He got some of those trucks that were left rusting over there in the Philippines and brought them over and rebuilt them. Cannibalized them because parts were interchangeable, axles and things.
Right.
And he had the Japanese rebuild those things.
Okay.
And that's why we had as many trucks as we did, luckily.
Well, and speaking of Japanese involvement in Korea, the train system in Korea was Japanese built, so you had narrow train tracks relevant to the World War II. Yeah, but that's relevant to Japanese construction from World War II.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just to throw that in there. Now, I know what you're talking about, bastardizations. Sam Arredondo, who was with the 1st Armored Division in World War II, he volunteers to go to Korea in June and ends up there around September. And they had literally taken M4 tanks off the displays and out of the machine shops and refurbed them and got them over there because there was a very big shortage of U.S. available tanks. Yeah. Now at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only 2 tanks that I was familiar with being in Korea, and I'm sure there may be other tracked vehicles, needless to say, but the M4 was used primarily and possibly specifically by the United States Army in Korea, while the M26 was used primarily, if not specifically, just by the Marine Corps. Is that accurate?
I'm not sure the numbers. I'm not sure the numbers of those tanks.
Right.
Okay. Numbers, you know.
Well, that's just what I found. I didn't know if you would be able to fill that question or not. I just thought I'd swing it out there and.
I'm going to look that up, but I remember. The one thing about our tanks, though, they were in dry dock over in Japan during the occupation because the roads were so narrow. You know, they never did have anything to go out and really test in maneuvers.
Okay.
You know, they were all dry docks. They had those things set there for a good 5 years because they weren't going on those little dirt roads or back country roads.
Now.
Like I said, when I was at Camp Youngins, I said that's where all 4 of the tank units were together, and all 4 of the artillery units were together. But we weren't doing any actual maneuvers because we didn't have anybody infantry to support. And up to like 49. And on this 49, like I think when Russia detonated that bomb, that's when the Carter said we better start getting combat ready.
Okay. All right, that makes perfect sense to me.
So we didn't have many. When I was in the 1st Cavalry, we went out on like field maneuvers or something, but we never. It was never a support like at a regional level.
All right. In regards to General O.P. Smith, I know that he taught amphibious landings at Quantico, and he might very well have been one of the best versed in terms of teaching amphibious landings. But when it comes to amphibious landings, if you do the math, the number of Army amphibious landings versus the number of Marine amphibious landings in a combat situation, the Army quite exponentially had more than the Marine Corps. Is that accurate?
Normally we have a lot more stuff than the Marines had.
Right.
You know, they had some upgraded equipment we never had. You know, like I saw that 8-inch gun they had was like on a flatbed. Looked like they had the wheels on it. You know.
Yeah.
And they had the latest. You know, it's just like they had to complain about the boot. You know, they had that winter boot, and they didn't like that.
Yeah.
Somebody gave it to them, but they didn't figure out the sweat on the things. You know, the big with sweat.
Yeah, with that ladder.
That's when we just had that regular old leather combat boot.
Right.
So we had the goulash to go over it, you know, the overshoe.
So
Overshoe for in case you got the water. It wasn't much higher than the top of the boot, though.
when did O.P. Smith come out of Quantico teaching and start becoming a leader over a battalion or division?
I think they
Yeah.
There was a long space in between before they ever gave it to him.
Yeah, he was 11 years in grade prior to World War II.
Oh, okay, yeah, I think so. He wasn't a top genius, I think, as far as the Marines were concerned.
Yeah, but he got his second star in World War II or shortly thereafter.
Well, I guess shortly after.
Okay.
Probably when he went to studies, he was over in France at that one school, that one infantry school.
Right. Yeah, he went to France. All right. So let's switch over to Almond. Almond had commanded an all-black regiment. I think it was the 92nd.
Yeah.
And didn't have much success with that. And it's reported that Truman kind of took him under his wing. Said he was a real, kind of a ball buster, go get him guy, but he was highly prejudiced towards.
Yeah, that was understandable, of the times. But then I don't know how, like I said, I don't know how he got to be MacArthur's number two man, number one man.
Number one guy, yeah.
Okay. He came from Europe too,
Right. Well.
And I don't think really, basically, that MacArthur had much respect for those guys in World War II.
Right.
Over in Germany.
Yeah. So coming.
Because, he was saying that, like in his reminiscence, he says, the trouble is with him, he says, he was cheated out of a lot of things because it was mostly what you heard about World War II were the bloodiest battles.
Okay.
And he said, his word, that blood, just like he said, he set out, he said, I'm going to let the Chinese die on the vine.
Okay.
They think we're going to take every island the way they took it. He said, we're not going to do that. If we don't leave it, we're going to round it. Let them die on the vine.
All right. But that concept, which Truman really wasn't involved in, the Navy was running this one. This is on the island of Peleliu. That really didn't hold a whole lot of military positives about taking that island, but it ended up being a bit of a slaughterhouse. Wasn't O.P. Smith?
I don't know if they really needed it. I know because that one guy that I had on my favorites here, he really knocked Stiller on Peleliu.
Was O.P. Smith part of that?